recording will start now. So, welcome to the writing workshop. It's Wednesday, y'all, and we are so glad that you joined us. Today, we're going to be having a conversation about effective communication with Miss Jemina Macharry. She is representing for the Houston Rockets. And so I'm so delighted to have her here today. Not to mention how gorgeous she is today, okay? But she's going to give you all the great information about how to communicate effectively, especially around sales. And that's whether you're selling a product to a customer, whether you're selling an idea that you have, or whether you're selling yourself if you're trying to get a job or anything like that. All right, I'm gonna mute somebody. Okay. And so as we go through, of course, we want to keep it informal like we usually do. If you need to come off mute to ask a question or hop in the conversation, just know that you can do that. And also, at the end, we'll leave a little bit of time for you to ask questions if you can hold your questions until then. But if it's something that's just burning, you need to hop in, feel free to hop off. It's pretty conversational. But I'm going to let Jemina introduce herself and then hop right into her content for the day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boyce, and thank you for everyone who's joining today or whether you're watching it later since it's being recorded. I'm really excited to share with you guys and honored to be asked. I know that this is normally a writing communication class, but I thought it would be fun to talk about communication with selling. When Dr. Boyce reached out to me, you know, I told her a lot of what we do is face-to-face and being in front of people, communicating, finding out what their needs are and how to offer the best product or service to them. And a lot of times, I mean, we buy stuff every day in our lives, whether you're buying a TV, you're buying a car, or you're making whatever big purchase, someone is trying to sell you something or you're trying to sell something. So there is a method to the madness. And if you've had an experience with a good salesperson, I want to open up the method that we go through when we're trying to close deals or sell our ideas, and then also make you aware of them because you may want to use them in the future as well. So a little bit about me. I'm Jemina Macharry. I am the manager of premium suites and activation at the Houston Rockets and Toyota Center. This is my 8th season with the Houston Rockets. And so what it basically means being the manager of premium suites and activations, I basically handle our suite partnerships. We have companies who own suites for years. They come in, they find the right package that works for them, and they own the suite. They use it for their employees or their clients. And then we also have individuals who come in and rent a suite for one night. They may just want a suite for a concert or for a Rockets game. So I basically help them with that, and I manage the partnerships for the terms of the contracts. And when it's time for their contracts to be up, then I'm the one who helps them negotiate their terms and see if they want to upgrade, downgrade, or whatever the case may be. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing and finance with a minor in sales from the University of Houston, also a master's degree in business with a focus in marketing from U of H as well. Do we have anyone who follows the Rockets on the call today? Keon?
I kind of pay attention to them a little bit, you know.
Okay. Well,
I'm from Houston. I spent a lot of time out there in front of the Toyota Center.
Thing that you pull out the plastic thing, but I didn't want no cheese. Thank you.
Okay, well, I just asked because I'm sure you noticed that the 2 players that are in the background of my photo no longer play with the Rockets. And I thought it was interesting when I pulled this photo because we have been working from home for the last 11 months because of COVID. So this is actually my last updated picture from the arena. Yeah, so that was from last season. We did open up in December. We had our first home game, limited capacity, and we're still trying to work through that. But we still have to sell stuff every day. We've adjusted to the environment. So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we still have effective communication. So let's dive right into verbal communication skills for selling. So why is this important, especially if you're not a salesperson? We are always selling our ideas every day, whether we're at work, with our friends, with our family. We are always selling our ideas in some way, whether it's you're trying to convince your friends to join in on something with you. You're trying to convince your spouse to take you to a certain place. You're trying to sell yourself. If you're interviewing, we are always selling something, even if it's not your professional title. In every capacity of life, we are trying to convince people of our ideas or sell ourselves in some type of way. So there are certain verbal and nonverbal skills that you can be aware of to help you convey your message to your audience. And we're going to start by discussing verbal communication skills for selling. And that includes conversation skills, questioning skills, and vocal skills. So is there anyone who recently made a big purchase? Let's say like a TV or a car, or you went somewhere where you had to interact with a salesperson? And I know, okay, let me rephrase that, because I know that 2020, a lot of us were at home. Let's think about even before that, the last time you just ever made a purchase.
I just recently purchased my son a car, so I had to deal with the salesman.
Okay, so what do you remember about the conversation or the experience when you first arrived at the dealership and how they approached you?
For me, because I am a woman and I am African American, I felt like they were trying to take advantage of me in so many ways. They didn't know that I have the negotiating skills of the man that stand on the street and sell you a purse. So I think once they realized that they were not dealing with a rookie, I went in there with my set price, and that's what I got.
Okay, so it's interesting that you say that. So when you first got there, did you feel like, did they try to warm you up first? Did they try to have conversation with you, or did you feel like they automatically like prejudged you?
I feel like they automatically prejudged me, because when I was looking at certain vehicles, they was like, "Oh, are you going? So we just need to talk to the finance director." Da 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 da. You just automatically assume I was financing. You just automatically assume that I wanted something low price or something low mileage, or just don't assume that, because I'm here for a reason.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you shared that, because a lot of times that just goes to show that you had an interaction with, I don't want to call them a bad salesperson, but someone who could have worked on their conversation skills.
Right.
And good.
Can I hop in and tell you, mine is to her point too. That salesperson, I've been looking at different houses, and I noticed the same kind of thing, that somebody will come to me directly with well, the best price would probably be, and I'm like, you haven't even asked me my budget, nor do you know what I'm willing to spend. So when you come in straight at me saying like, well, the least expensive option is, I'm not looking for the least expensive option, but you probably just missed out on the sale because you assumed that I was.
I have experienced it also the last time I purchased a vehicle, and this kind of ended up working in the salesperson's favor. I went to a dealership and I was kind of like walking around, no one approached me, but then finally a young African-American woman approached me, and she was super sweet, but I just kind of felt like, you know what, I passed like 3 or 4 salespeople in the 5 minutes I've been in here, before she came up, and she was great because I ended up getting the car from her. But yeah, I guess they felt like, you could go work with her because she's an African-American female, so you guys should work together, which was great. I appreciated giving her the sale, but you see, you got to be careful of stuff like that. So when it comes to conversation skills, good salespeople look for a way to make a connection with their customers and build a conversation based on trust and understanding. And conversation skills include making small talk when it's called for and to an appropriate degree. When someone walks into a dealership, you want to at least be warm them up. You don't just want to jump right into it, because without conversation, as Dr. Boyce said and the other young lady shared, you don't even really know what that person's looking for, what their intentions are. So you want to warm them up. And people buy from people they like, and you have to warm up your customer or your audience so that they feel comfortable opening up and ultimately buying from you, doing business with you, or accepting your idea. You have to be personable. You have to display interest and warmth. You have to avoid bias and stereotyping. And we just discussed that. You know, if someone walks in and you automatically assume what they want, what's best for them, or what they can or can't afford, that could be detrimental to your sale. We always say at the Houston Rockets, you can never judge a book by its cover, because we have companies who come in, they look big and bad, and they sign sweet leases, and they can't even make that first payment, you know, and it's immediately a legal issue. Then you have someone who comes into the Toyota Center on their own. They could be a Black or brown person. They could be dressed in a hoodie and some jeans or whatever. And they're like, I want to buy a suite. I have a business. They may not even have a website. And then you tell them that the suite is $320,000, and they're like, I could pay it cash. I don't ask any questions about what they do, but the point is, you don't ever want to be biased or stereotyped before you really understand your prospect or your customer or your audience. You want to refrain from interrupting or correcting unnecessarily. Fun fact, the Toyota Center is an arena because it's closed and basketball is played there. So we have a lot of people who come in and say, the stadium, the stadium, the stadium. But if I'm trying to win your business, I'm not going to correct you and be like, it's the Toyota Center arena. Let it go. You know, you don't need to interrupt someone unnecessarily if it's not necessary, if it's not mandatory. Show you genuinely care about your customers' needs. Adjust to your customer's verbal style. If you are talking to someone that, you know, people have different personalities. If they're very stoic and, you know, it's taken them a while to loosen up, don't automatically be super casual. You want to make sure you're matching their tone until they start to loosen up. Then you could be more casual with them. Or if someone is very casual, you know, and they're very carefree, you don't want to come in and be super uptight, because then they're not going to feel comfortable with you as well. You want to offer observations to show that you understand. You want to accept and acknowledge your customers' opinions. Watch for and respond to signs of discomfort or boredom, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And you want to tell the truth. You know, you never want to put yourself in a position to where just for conversation's sake, you're saying things that aren't true, and then it comes back and it could be detrimental to your deal or your business relationship. So those are some of our conversation skills that we want to pay attention to. Next is questioning skills. You want to be able to ask the right questions to get your audience or prospective customer to open up. So does someone want to volunteer for a quick questioning exercise? It'll be easy, I promise.
Sure.
Okay, hi Keon. Okay, so I am going to be asking you some questions. Tell me, okay, you want to buy something. What do you want to buy?
A car.
A car. Okay, so let's say you just walked into the dealership, and I'm going to ask you close-ended questions. So these are just yes or no. You can only answer yes or no. And I just want everyone to kind of observe how the conversation goes and if we're going anywhere. Hi, hi, sir. Thanks for coming into the dealership today. Are you looking to buy a car?
Yes.
Do you own a car?
No.
Okay. Do you want an SUV?
No.
Do you want a sedan?
No.
Oh, do you like Toyotas?
Yes.
Okay. Camrys?
Yes.
Can you see how boring and stale this conversation is? And I'm not really finding out anything about what Mr. Keon wants or his needs or anything like that. So now I'm going to flip the script and give you an example of open-ended questions. And a good salesperson tries to stay away from closed-ended questions because they are what they are, closed-ended. You don't really get anywhere. But with open-ended, you get a lot more information. So now you're coming into the dealership. Now I'm going to ask you open-ended questions. You can answer however you want to answer. Hi, sir. Thanks for coming into the dealership today. What brings you in?
I am looking for a vehicle.
Okay. What kind of car do you currently have?
I do not have a car currently.
Okay. Well, now that you're looking for one, what will you be using it for?
Um, to travel.
Oh, to travel. Is it just you? How many people do you have in your family? How many people will be usually traveling with you?
It's just me.
Okay. So, since it's just you, what type of look are you looking for? Are you looking for something fast, something comfortable, something spacious?
Fast and comfortable.
Okay. So you see, just from me asking those open-ended questions where he could not answer with a yes or a no,
You see,
I
how
already
you got off
know.
track and you was worried about them cinnamon rolls and forgot all about my water.
So since I was able to ask him open-ended questions, I already know that he wants something that he's going to be traveling a lot with. It's just him and he wants something comfortable, as opposed to the yes or no questions where we weren't really getting anywhere. So closed-ended questions are simple yes or no answers. Open-ended questions require the customer to elaborate more, and that's what's really going to open you up to making sure that you're recommending the right product or service. Probing questions. You're asking about a specific topic to uncover more information, just like when I asked him, how many people will be in your vehicle? What will you be using it for? Confirming questions, making sure that your customer understands what you've said and gone over. You always want to repeat the information that they've given you back to them, because then they know that you're actively listening and you understand. Summary confirmation questions. Check to understand what your customer has told you. So if he says that he's going to be using his car for travel, then I would probably say, okay, so just so I understand, will you be traveling for work? Will you be traveling for pleasure? Just so I can really understand what travel means to him. So the next thing is vocal skills. Good communicators know that what they say is often less important than the way that they say it. You know, a lot of times it's about the delivery. So you want to use your voice to make an impact by adjusting your pitch to suit the conversation. If you're talking about something fun and exciting, sound fun and exciting. If you're talking about something that's really serious, you want to make sure that you're showing your audience that this is a serious topic. You want to adjust your volume to ensure clarity and suit your customers' comfort and hearing needs. So in my role, sometimes before COVID, of course, we would meet with clients at their offices. Sometimes we would have client lunches. Sometimes we'd have coffee meetings. Sometimes we've had dinner meetings, or a lot of times we'd be at a game or a concert. So obviously in each of those settings, I would need to adjust my volume to make sure that my customer can understand me. If we're sitting in seats at a Rockets game, I probably don't want to talk like this and talk really low. I want to make sure that they can understand what I'm saying. And alternatively, if we're in their office, I don't need to talk and be extra loud because they may feel like I'm aggressive or doing the most. So make sure you're adjusting your volume to ensure that you're suiting the environment. You want to speak in a steady tone of voice to show that you're calm and you're confident. And a lot of times that may take practice before any big presentation, sales pitch, interview. You may want to, at least this is something that I've personally done over my career, take the time to rehearse what you're talking about and what you're going to say, so you feel confident when you're talking about it. You can slow down and it shows that you're calm. And of course, slow the speed of your speech so it's calm and clear. A lot of times we don't even realize how fast that we're talking, because when nerves kick in, your body can do strange things. So you don't even realize that you could be talking super fast. So you want to be able to practice when you're on your own and no one's looking. You can mess up. You can, really say, okay, wow, that was really fast. Take the time to perfect your pitch or perfect whatever it is that you're trying to deliver to your audience, so that when nerves kick in, it doesn't get the best of you. Varying the inflection of your voice to suit your message, show enthusiasm, common sense, interest, and gravity, enunciating your words clearly. And I will say this. So especially being in professional sales, there is Jemina that's at work, and then there's Jemina that's not at work, you know? And it's really great to always be yourself. I say that you should always stay true to who you are, but there is something to be said about when I'm talking to my girlfriends and, you know, I'm saying things however I want to say them. And then I'm talking to an audience that doesn't really know me. I want to make sure that they understand the words that I'm saying. So I'm enunciating my words clearly, and I'm making sure that I'm talking slow so they understand, and I'm not going to get too casual with the conversation. Varying the quality and intensity of your voice to hold interest, and conveying meaning using the sound of your voice to reinforce your message. The tone of your voice, your inflection does so much for the message that you're trying to deliver. You want to sound excited, you want to sound confident, and your audience will be able to read that and understand that through your voice, and you want them to be excited with you. Any questions so far? Okay, great. So I'm going to move on to nonverbal, because we talked a lot about verbal, but nonverbal is just as important. Body language can say way more than words and tell a totally different story. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the nonverbal cues of your audience. And that's really going to be listening skills and nonverbal cues. So listening skills. We all know the saying, we have 2 ears and one someone mouth, which basically means that you should listen twice as much as you talk. So in the first half of this, I talked about all the things that you should do when you're communicating. But even with all of that, you should not be talking as much as your customer, or you should not be talking as much as the person that you're trying to convey a message to. And why is that? Because you want them to feel comfortable. You want them to open up. If they're opening up to you and they're responding and they're interacting, that means, one, that they're listening, that they're interested. And you also want them to feel like whatever decision it is that they come up with at the end, they had a part in deciding it. It wasn't something that they were forced to do. They're going to say, oh, well, I interacted, I asked these questions, I gave my comments. So, you know, with that being said, I feel comfortable moving forward with whatever this decision is. So listening to your customer to discover their needs helps you suggest appropriate products or services to meet those needs. Focus your full attention on your customer. Briefly summarize your understanding of what your customer has said. Take notes if necessary. This is big because, especially working in sales, when I meet with a client who may be interested in bringing their employees to a Rockets game, buying a Rockets suite for the season, and I'm sitting with them and really learning about their business, I have to actively listen. There is so much information that I could give them. There are so many options I could share with them. There are so many testimonials, client stories I could just regurgitate and word vomit on them. But I have to listen to what they're telling me, because I could end up giving them a lot of information that they don't need. And as salespeople, a lot of times, and not even just as salespeople, in life, when you're trying to convince someone of something and you're in a deep conversation about trying to get someone to join your team, even an interview or whatever, you're constantly already thinking about the next thing that you're going to say. Even in an interview, when they're asking you questions, you're answering the question, then you're thinking about the next thing that you're going to say while they're asking you the next question. That means you're not actively listening. So you want to make sure that you pause and you actually take in what your audience is saying, which is why I say take notes if necessary, because for me, that helps me stop my brain and actually record what I'm getting from my audience or from my customer. Use appropriate nonverbal cues, such as nodding your head, inclining your body forward, and maintaining eye contact. You want them to know that you're actively paying attention. Note your customer's nonverbal cues. Are they eager, reluctant, or impatient? When you ask them a question, does it take them a while? Are they kind of squirming, like, I don't know, I don't really feel comfortable? Pay attention to those things, because that can help steer you in the right direction for your conversation. And use appropriate, well-timed probing questions and summary confirmation questions. I have been in situations or conversations where someone's trying to sell me something and I'm giving them my input and they ask me a question that's totally irrelevant. And I'm like, so you basically weren't paying attention. Or I'll be talking and then they just automatically just interrupt me and ask another question because they just feel like it's just time to ask another question. Or maybe I've even decided, you know what, I think I like this. And then they may say something like, okay, so do you need me to show you another option? No, if you're paying attention, then you'll know which way to go with your conversation. So you should always listen twice as much as you're talking in any sales conversation. And finally, understanding nonverbal cues. And I love this picture because we all use emojis, now all the time when we're texting and on social media, but people give you real life emojis that you have to understand and pay attention to. And especially now that we are in a world where if we were in person, we would have on masks, you have to understand things that are happening with people's face, their hand gestures and their body language, because you can't always see if they're smiling or not, but you can see their eyes, you can see how their hands and their body is moving. And that can really guide you on if you're going in the right direction, if they're feeling or receiving what you're trying to say to them, or if, you may need to pivot to something else. So facial expressions, of course, we all know bad is if their nose is wrinkled, furrowing their eyebrows or rolling their eyes. Lord, if someone's rolling their eyes, you need to really stop, drop, and, think about something else and say, okay, so this may not be working out. What do we need to do to get this back on track? And of course, good is smiling, raised eyebrows, and a relaxed mouth. Eye contact. If you are avoiding your customer or looking outside your sales pace, when you're talking to them or whoever you're talking to, if you're trying to tell your friends to do something with you or you're having an interview, but you can't even make eye contact, that doesn't show confidence. Of course, always making eye contact is your best bet. Smiling, of course, it's bad if someone has a totally firm face and they're expressionless. And of course, smiling is always a good thing. And whenever you're in a difficult conversation with someone, always smile if you can, if it's appropriate, because it shows that you're listening. It shows that you're paying attention. While you're talking about whatever it is that you're trying to convey, always smile because it shows that you're confident and it just gives a warmer tone. Hands. Bad sign is if hands are folded to the chest or if they're near the face, because obviously it shows that they're bored. Good is hands are moving freely, relaxed. If you're selling a product, if they're touching it and they're feeling it, because that means they're trying to experience it. Gestures, bad, closed arms or dismissive hand gestures. Good, open arms, nodding their head. Posture, if someone's slouching or their shoulders are turned away or you're slouching, that's not a good sign. Good is standing upright and inclining your body forward, leaning into the conversation. Position, bad, moving too close. You want to respect people's personal space. You want them to respect yours. Or if someone is totally facing away and they won't even turn their body towards you. Good is observing personal space and accommodating cultural differences. And I say cultural differences because I've worked with clients who are not from American culture. For example, we have a lot of Chinese clients, and I had to get used to the fact that when you're talking to them or they're talking to you, they like to get really close to you. Like they like to get really close to you. And it's a cultural thing because the population in China is maybe 2-3 times that of the United States. So they're used to people, it's everywhere is like New York. They're used to a lot of people being in closed spaces. So when they're talking to you, it's their nature to be up close to you and kind of be in your space. So just recognizing that, not being offended by it, and adjusting your sales pitch and your body language accordingly. So your communication skills determine your chances of a sale, from your opening pitch to your closing statements. Developing your questioning, Vocal and conversational skills will help you build on a strong first impression by gaining trust and establishing credibility. Because as I said before, people buy from people they like. It isn't always necessarily the product or the service, but if they like you enough, they're going to trust you to want to do business with you. They're going to trust you to take on your ideas. They're going to trust you to try your product or service. Your nonverbal communication skills, such as active listening and interpreting nonverbal cues, are just as important as what you say. The way you deliver a message is just as important as the message that you're trying to get across. So, any additional questions or any comments?
I'll let Keon. Keon came off. Go ahead.
No, I was just finna say, it was, I mean, I have, is a value conversation. I got some value from it.
Great.
That's it.
And my hope is that even if, you're not thinking about the next time you're going to sell something, just being aware of when you go somewhere, and the way someone approaches you, just being mindful of, did they try to warm me up? Did they at least start with conversation? Are they being biased? Are they asking prejudged questions? Or are they actually giving me a chance to really say what I want or what I'm looking for, or what I think is best for me? Or are they trying to go ahead and impose their thoughts or their views on what they think is best for me? Always being aware of that, because you're the one, as a buyer, you're the one who's in control. So you want to make sure that if someone is trying to sell you something, they're going through the process the right way and really giving you a chance to express what you want and what you think is best for you.
Makes sense. I certainly appreciate it because it's
Can't
important.
hear you.
We can't hear you, Dr. Boyce.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, now we can.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was about to say, it's just really important, I think, especially for our students, to think about these kind of conversations, because sometimes we think about it just in the context of, like you're saying, like selling products to each other, or like when we're going to be consumers. But like you said earlier in the presentation, like that give and take is something we do all the time, no matter who we're talking to. And so our verbal communication skills are just as important as our written, and sometimes they go hand in hand. Sometimes if you have a presentation where you're trying to sell your idea or yourself, you start with a written, like you have here. You're speaking to us, but you still have the written piece of your accompanying presentation. And even then, you have to be mindful of how you warm people up and how you lead in with those questions and how you interacted with them today. And all of those things are valuable parts of selling whatever we're trying to sell. And so I thank you so much for taking time to meet with us today.
Absolutely.
I feel like I had another question. Oh, no, I was just going to also say, because you mentioned the stereotyping that some people have around sales. And I was just going to say, it's important for us to make sure we don't stereotype others, and think we already have them figured out when we're trying to pitch ideas or sell something to them. And also that when it's happening to us, that we have the courage to speak truth in those situations. And for me, I always choose to combat those types of ignorant moments, I should call them, with questions. So if someone does
Absolutely.
stereotype me, or they say oh, this is the cheaper option for such and such a floor plan or something, if I'm looking at a house, and I'm like, well, what made you think that I was looking for the cheapest option? And I make them think and reflect on their own stereotypes of purchase, because I told you I was looking for X amount of square feet, and you thought that I should downsize to something in your mind based on what you see and perceive about me. And so I think that's also an important part of sales, is for us to be empowered, especially as people of color, to step into those spaces. Absolutely. And challenge those stereotypes, because that's an educational piece for some people, where they have to learn, they may not even realize it to be a prejudice, or, you know what I'm saying? Until I ask a question. Like I'm in a store, not getting customer service one day at a small boutique in Plano that I had been to plenty of times before. And I had to go to the two ladies that were working at the desk that were servicing the other women that happened to be white. in the store and say, excuse me, is there a reason why y'all are not providing customer service today? So before I spend my money as a consumer, it's a requirement to me that a company be equitable in their practices. Like, this is a core
Absolutely.
value that I have. And so whether I'm going to spend as a consumer, whether I'm going to sell to somebody else in my business, like, I always want to make sure to treat people fairly, and I want to be treated with that same level of fairness as well. So I think it goes on either side. So I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can't even, you said it perfectly. We always try to sell our ideas, but also remember that we are also being sold to, and make sure they are selling to you in the right way, because you have the spending power. You have the power to decide whether you're going to give someone your business or your coins or not, you know? And if they aren't going through the proper steps to really uncover what you need and let you express what you want without bias, then, you know, you have the decision to decide that you could just take it elsewhere. And so it's important for me, especially in my role, to be completely honest. Like, I've seen, you know, on my team, people decide, oh yeah, they're just going to want season tickets, probably upper bowl, you know? And I'm like, you don't know that. They may want courtside seats and they may be able to afford it. You don't
And
know
that's
that.
where the question comes in. What made you say that?
Exactly.
The question, there's power in the question. The question requires the person to think, because I could tell them, you don't know that. You don't know what they want. But if I ask that person, now what made you say that? Oh,
You are
well,
absolutely right.
just like the way they were dressed. What do you mean? Say more about that. That open-ended question, even back on that. Say more about that. What do you mean the way they were dressed? Because somebody had on a hoodie and some J's when they came in. That meant that they, you know, if they had on a power suit, you would feel like, oh, they can afford this or they can do that. And so it's just crazy.
And I love that, because that's something I'm going to have to implement. What makes you think that? Because on the same token, someone can come in with a power suit and they're like, oh yeah, I know he wants floor seats. Oh, why do you think so?
What made you say that?
Yeah.
The suit, like what they pull up in their car. And so it's just crazy. But anyway, we could talk about this all day for sure. But thank you so much for coming and giving us that information. Helping us bolster our communication skills are so important, especially when we step into our corporate workspaces. And so we thank you so much for your expertise today and for coming by. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future. When you have something else to share, you just let me know. Oh, I got something else I want to share with the students. And we'll
I will say, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to share my email address with them, JeminaM@rocketball.com. I'd love to be a resource for anyone in any way that I can.
Nothing, not about tickets for the game or nothing. We're not going to eat, just questions about communication.
I mean, if you got questions about tickets, I got prices. You know, if you got questions about tickets, I have prices.
What's the email?
But if you have any questions about sales, communication, or just working in sports, I would love to be a resource.
Keon was asking for the email address. He was trying to write it down.
Oh, yes. Jemina, that's J-E, M as in Mary, I, N as in Nancy, A, M as in Mary. So Jemina M @rocketball.com.
Got you.
I see you put your Rockets hat on mid-presentation.
He did start laughing. I said, I see you slide it in there just like.
Because I just kept thinking about it like, man, why don't you have on your Rockets hat? We got a Rockets, someone that work for him, support, so I just put it on.
Well, I appreciate the support. I appreciate it.